So today we're here to talk about a few functions of your TI83 calculator. One of those functions is the negative key. If I wanted to type onto your calculator 8 minus 3, turn the calculator on, and then we'll type 8. The minus button, or the subtraction key button, is over here with the plus and the times and the division here. 8 minus 3, and of course after that we press enter, and we know that 8 minus 3 gives us an answer of 5. What if I wanted to type negative 3 plus 8? This key on the right is a subtraction key. It cannot be used as a negative sign in front of a number. If you want a negative sign in front of a number, you must use the negative key, which is under the 3. As you see here, it's in parentheses. So you would type negative 3 plus 8. And we know this should also give us 5. So this is the difference between these two keys, the subtraction key and the negative key. Make sure you use them properly. The next thing I want to talk about is a shortcut called the entry key. If you are typing something that perhaps maybe is a long drawn out thing, let's say 8 plus 9 times 2 minus 3 plus 5 times 8 plus 4 minus 7, and you press enter and you get 48. And then for some reason you see, oh no, I typed something wrong. This 7 was supposed to be a 5. Instead of retyping this entire thing again, what you can do is you see the word entry. I'm going to zoom in on that. See the word entry in yellow just above the enter key. So anytime you want to access something in yellow, you're going to need to press the second button. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to press second and then entry. And you see that my entire expression, I'm going to zoom in again, my entire expression actually comes back up on the screen just like it did before. So this time I typed it, this time I used the entry key. The entry key brings up the last thing that you typed on the screen. Now that I've retyped this using the entry key, I can go back and type a 5 where that 7 was. Okay? Now let's say someone says, oh, you weren't supposed to subtract 3. I can use the delete key. You see here DEL, and I can delete that. So we can make changes to that without retyping the entire thing. So basically the entry key is just a shortcut. You don't have to use it, but it can help you out quite a bit. So it's just a shortcut. That's all that is. Okay? The last two things we're going to talk about today on my checklist here are mode and scientific notation. So let's talk about mode. You've got a mode key on your calculator. It's right here, right next to the second button. And the mode key is used a lot in higher level classes. I want to show you a couple of functions for the mode key. Number one is notation, normal notation, scientific notation, or engineering notation. Okay? So normal, scientific, or engineering. And you can see the default for our calculator is normal. And we're going to keep it there, but if you ever had to use scientific or engineering notation, now let's just play with that for a second. Let's go to scientific notation. And then of course go to second and quit. Now, anything I type on my calculator, let's say 5.5, shows up in scientific notation. Everything. So let's say I type 250,000 and press enter. It'll show up in scientific notation. So if you put your calculator in scientific mode, everything you type in appears in scientific notation. Let's go back to mode. I prefer to keep mine in normal mode. The second line down says float and then 0 through 9. Now what this does is, let's say you were taking an accounting course and you're dealing with money. And you want your calculator to automatically round everything to 2 decimal places. Money. We can go from float, which is the default, over to 2. Press enter. Now you see the 2 is highlighted. Quit. And type 5 times 2.2548. And it'll automatically round the answer to 2 decimal places. Automatically every time. And it does this because you told it to. Now let's go back to mode and go back to float. Now what float does, float gives you as many decimal places as possible. So I'm going to retype this statement here, 5 times 2.2548, using the entry key. Press enter. Now this time I got 11.274. I got 3 decimal places in my answer. Why did I only get 2 last time? Because I changed it to 2 decimal places. Go back to mode. So you have float and 0 through 9. And the default is float, and I keep mine on float. But if you ever need to change it, you can. Now, radians and degrees are 2 units that we use in trigonometry for our trig functions. Our trig functions are, I'm going to zoom out for you, sine, cosine, and tangent. When using these 3 keys, sine, cosine, and tangent, and when graphing sine, cosine, and tangent, you need to make sure whether you're in radian mode or degree mode. For anything else you do on your calculator, these 2 modes here, radian and degree, will not affect you. Okay? So for the time being, we will not use that. When you take Math 122, you will need radian or degree mode depending on the type of problem and the answer you're asked for. Now, the next line down, FUNC, PAR, POL, and SEQ. Those are different types of notation. Okay, the standard for this course will be function notation. Later in the semester, we will talk about parametric equations, perhaps very briefly. If we do, at that time, you would need to change to PAR, parametric equations. Later on in life, if you take a higher level math class, you may talk about polar equations. That would be POL, etc., etc. The default is FUNC. Function notation, you should keep it there. Function notation, of course, being covered in this book in Chapter 1. The next line down, connected or dot. What this has to do with is graphs, okay? And that's just if something is going to graph as a connected line or dots. The default is connected, and I like to leave mine like that, but every now and then you may need to see just, points, and the dot mode would do that for you. And the rest of these are things that we will not use, okay? So if you have any questions about them, come see me. So that's our mode key and what our mode key does. And the last thing is scientific notation. Let's say I want to type a number in scientific notation on my calculator. We're going to zoom in. You have a key here. It's a comma. And above it you have a double E. If you want to type something in scientific notation, you're going to use that double E key. Okay? And so let's say I wanted to type the following. 2.541 times 10 to the 12. Let's say I want to type that into my calculator. Well, the way you would type that, you would go 2.541, and instead of typing times 10 to the 12th, this part here, the times 10, will be replaced with that double E key. So, since this is in yellow, we're going to type double E and then 12. 2.54E12. This is equivalent to 2.54 times 10 to the 12th. And if I press enter, notice it keeps it in scientific notation because my calculator will only display 9 digits. Anything larger than that will remain in scientific